So, the next piece is something completely different, written by a Swedish-American composer, me, and having really nothing else to do with Scandinavia. But this piece is called The Half King, and I subtitled it Music for an Imaginary Film. So there's the story. Here's the story. There are two stories. The first story is how I came to write the piece, and the second story is how it came to be named The Half King. The first story, why did I write this piece? Well, a friend of mine asked me to write some music for a short film, silent film that he had written. He created this silent film, and he needed a musical score for it. And so I wrote this music. I wrote most of what you're about to hear. And then for various technical reasons, it wasn't used. That happens in the film business. You write something and, Anyway, so I had this piece, and what hadn't been used, and I thought, well, I'll turn it into a concert piece, but it'll be sort of a descriptive, because it was written to describe musically what was going on in the film. But what am I going to call it? What am I going to? What's it going to be about? What's it really going to be about? Because it doesn't help to tell you the story of the film because it's not about the film. So I'm sitting with a friend of mine in a bar. Yes, composers do that too. And he said, and I said, well, what am I going to call this piece? What's it, He said, well, why don't you call it The Half King? The name of the bar was The Half King. And I said, well, who is the Half King? What's the Half King? What's the story of the Half King? Well, turns out there was a figure who was apparently a true person, a real person who lived in the mid-1700s, and he was a Native American. And his people had been pushed west by the white settlers who came to Pennsylvania and New York. And they pushed his people off their native lands and into what was then Ohio, or the Ohio River Valley, Pittsburgh, sort of, that area. And so he was there, but he didn't have a permanent lodge house. So he wasn't a real king. He was a half king. And that's how everybody referred to him. He was a half king. And it turns out that his people were right in a good place because the British settlers, the English settlers, wanted to trade with them. They wanted to get beaver skins and whatever they had to trade, and they would give them other stuff. So they were looking, everybody's looking to make money, to make trade here. But from the north, we had the French, who were occupying what was Quebec at that time. And the French came down, and they wanted to trade with the Half King too, with his people too. And so the British sent out this young colonel by the name of George Washington. Later had a big career out here. And so they sent out George Washington to this to negotiate with this guy and try to make the deal with the Half King, to do the trade and only trade with the British, not trade with the French. So George Washington goes out there, and the Half King, Tanakh was his name, and